So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, here in Venice. My name is Bart Lootsma. I'm a professor from Innsbruck University and also from Luxembourg. And I'm your moderator today for this conference on the EU City Manifesto. This event has been organized by the European Forum for Architectural Policies. I'll say a little bit more about that later. And by the Y Factory, a research institute of Winnie Maas, who is also here in the TU Delft. I want to briefly introduce the guests here until I give the word to Mr. Barata, the president of the Venice Biennale, who wants to welcome us, and then we continue with the program. So I already announced Mr. Barata here. Then we have Roger Tropiano, who is the president of Les Rencontres, the Association of European Cities and Regions for Culture. We have Joost van Eersel, Dutch, from the European Economic and Social Committee. We have Pascal Brunet, for you on my left, for me on my right, the director of Relais Culture Europe, expert for Creative Europe, the next EU program for culture. We have Winnie Maas on my right, on your left, extreme left. He's one of the three founders of MVRDV, the architectural office. He is a professor at the TU Delft from the Y Factory. And last but not least, we have Yvette Masson-Sanoussi next to me in orange dress, the director of EFA. So I will, yes, absolutely. I'll explain you later why this applause is justified. And but for now, I would like to give the word to Mr. Barata, who would like to say a couple of words why he thinks it's worthwhile that we're sitting here.
Well, thank you very much. We are glad to host your initiative here, and I have already signed the manifesto, so I am with you. All I wanted to say is that the purpose of your manifesto seems to be, I would say, highly reasonable. I mean, it's difficult to find a word stronger than that. I'm an economist. My background as an economist, I've been taught that the development of man, of Homo economicus, goes through 4 stages. The first stage is when man understands, from the savage to the man, one understands that he can get something by producing it and not just by stealing it by force to others. The second step is then you can do this better by joining with other men in societies or groups, and so to reach economies of scale and so on and so forth. And it can go on for years and centuries, but then it comes the problem of the third and the fourth stage. And the third stage is that all this has to become a civilized world in which the man had to understand the externalities of what he does. So the effect of what he does on others, on the interests of others, on the common interest of the world in which he lives. The fourth stage is even more compelling because it requires the understanding of all those goods which can be produced only by joining in an institutionalized society that the economists called public goods. And this is the stage in which one understands fully the importance of what a community has to be endowed with, which is institutions, possibilities of developing a demand for public goods that can be produced only by institutions, and the world become fully civilized when, beyond the asking and demanding and obtaining products for the fulfillment of one personal well-being, we understand that our well-being depends on the surrounding worlds and the way in which we organize and the way in which we give form to the place in which we live, to the activities in which we live, to the environment in which we live, in the cities in which we live. So the form of the territory in which we live, the form of our city, reflects the capability of a community to express a demand for that. If this capability fails, if this is not felt, neither from the individual point of view or the institutional point of view, as a need, so the demand doesn't come out, and there is no demand. If there is no demand for that, there is no demand for architecture. If there is no demand for that, architecture has no future. Architects are fancy men building fancy buildings around the world, participating to society like, people who just help in producing extraordinary events. The need for architecture is part and is embodied. The feeling of the need, the desire for architecture is this is a feeling of the same quality of a desire of common institutions. Architecture and res publica are almost sisters. And through architecture, we show what kind of res publica we are capable of building. And this is true for a village, for a great community, for a nation, for a state, and for a community like the European community. If that is a test of what kind of Europe we want. The test is, do we consider this space, the space in which we can express a demand for the form of that space in which we live? This is the fulfillment of a constitution of minds, a constitution as an alliance of minds. We are not able to do that. Well, we'll fall back into be happy with what we have, and rolling back to fulfillment of self-interest in individuals, communities, different groups, and the whole process of the formation of Europe tends to fall apart. So architecture is this instrument to measure the temperature of the willingness of a country or a nation or a continent to build a new world and new institutions. Therefore, and with this spirit, I've signed your manifesto, and with this spirit, I hope that you will consider the Biennale a place where to come and where the gathering of people and the energy that you can feel around you will help your work and help your mission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barata. I think this is almost, because as you know, there is also the idea to build a European pavilion, and I understand that it has your warm sympathy also here on this. Wonderful. Thank you. So, after this very interesting and I think very important introduction, let's go to the rest of the event today. And maybe it's good to explain first what AFAP is. So AFAP is more, or at least tries to be more than a platform for debate, which we're doing today, a debate between the main actors that define architectural quality. So that means it's not just about for architects. Architects play an important role, and we will see that AFAP makes a plea to give architects a bigger role in a lot of spatial processes. But it's also about other actors, as we'll see, politicians, EU politicians, civil servants, etc., etc. So it also actively initiates and supports activities to create this debate between the main actors that define architectural quality. The EFAP contributes to advocacy to improve regulations for architectural creation, urban design, and solutions to social justice, ecological and economic crisis. So EFAP acts as a catalyst for the public discourse by collecting experiences. So EFAP is connected to or supported by or taking part in many other debates. So the members of EFAP do that. So that could be the EU Parliament, the Urban Intergroup, the EU European Commission, the EU member states who have representatives in EFAP, the directors of so-called directors of architecture, the EU Council. In the EU Council, the European Council, the EFAP plays an important role, and in the EU governance. So it is the EU Economic and Social Committee, there's a civil society pillar, the EU Committee of Regions is here, and there are also representatives here of those bodies, the EU governance by mandatory opinions or initiative opinions on new legislation proposed by Commission and Parliament, etc., etc.
As you said, our network is a city network, a region network through not only European Union, but what we call Great Europe, that is the Europe in the meaning of Conseil de l'Europe. And the members of our network are cities, larger city, small city, the region, and also some local authorities like Provincia and so on. And for example, the city of Mannheim is among us and member of our network. And I agree with two things. First of all, what the chairman of the Biennale said at the real role of architecture and also urbanism in the local authority policy. And what you say also about what you want that EFAP can do at the European level. We are in charge of culture, and our network is, you know, the cross of a politician in charge of culture and also the professional. But we consider that we cannot imagine a culture policy if we don't think about what a city is in Europe. We consider that from some decades, the Europeans don't know, forgot how to build a city. They did at the end of the 19th century, and in the 20th century, they had a lot of bad things. And we consider that if we want to have an European citizenship, if we want that European project can be a civilizational one, we have to think about what a city is in Europe. What is an European city? It's not an American city, Northern or Southern American city. It's not an African city. We have to imagine for this century what we want, what we have to think about cities.
I would like to celebrate two victories. The first is that the EU City Manifesto you see here in front of you is a result of all the efforts to bring the city at the forefront of future developments. And the second victory is that Europe is represented at long last amidst all the national architectural performances in the Biennale as an expression of the growing identity of the EU as an irreversible contribution to the well-being of European citizens. This is a magnificent step forward for EFAP and for all of us.
We know that we have to face two types of challenges. One type it's the challenges in the short-term period. We need that we have this crisis, a financial crisis. This financial crisis has produced a budgetary crisis, and we are now in front of the result of this crisis with this already very heavy social consequences of this crisis. In the short term, we have also to face the Eurozone crisis. And we exactly don't know what could happen in the next months in regard of the EU project. But in the same time, we have to face long-term challenges. And the long-term challenges is, if you read the literature, the European literature, a lot of literature is dedicated to the change of model. We know that we have to change the model. And we have a lot of choices possible in this model. We know that we have to try to continue to have a kind of prosperity in Europe. We want to do this. In the same time, we would like to conserve the equity in this continent or in this big political area. And we know that also we have really new challenge. It's always possible to renew democracy. If you look at the situation in different member states or different countries, in Europe we could see that that democracy it's in a very difficult moment. So we have this new challenge of how is possible for during the next 10 years to change the model and which kind of model we want. First, I think it's the necessity. It's we have to go voluntary in the transition. We don't have to look at the crisis. That's something we have, or where it's possible to do anything. We have really to go in this transition, sorry. And for this, we need a very ambitious European project.
What can architects and urbanists do about these issues? Because you might say it's a social issue, it's a political issue, and it's an economical issue. Yes, it's true. But on the other hand, we are visualizers. We can help to show how Europe can look like under certain kind of hypothesis, within certain kind of new kind of relationships. And to do that already maybe helps this kind of flood of words that's also now happening. And that's why some of you don't like to go to Brussels or to Strasbourg, because it's only words, that somehow there are images later to show how that Europe can look like. I notate that there are some predecessors, also in this Biennale before, that were aiming to help Europe. I mean, it was Rem Koolhaas a while ago that wanted to start this European consideration. It was Stefano Boeri that had been thinking about Europe as a constellation, and it needs a next step in that matter. Exactly now to give, say, that struggle somehow a kind of face on that way. How to do that is behind this manifesto. It is clear that we need new images of Europe, different images on Europe. We need maybe to emphasize the strength that's there. We need to compare it with our neighbors, with Asia and with the Americas. With Africa, what can we do in that neighborhood? Are there things, are there values that maybe attract industries and attract economies on it? And what is that then? Is it not only the heritage that we should in a way enlarge within Europe? Is it the social components about mixage, openness, democracy that are so valid that we have to push that even further? And what kind of urbanism is needed for that? Is the issue of collaboration in itself not, does that lead to other kind of cities and other kind of shapes? Is specialization needed in the European landscape? And it's amazing to see that this continent has the maximum amount of cuteness. It has more mini cities than everywhere on the planet. There are more cities that have about 50,000 inhabitants than anywhere, and they all want this. This shows already the equality in it, but they're fighting for a good way and for a bad way. So let's see How in that way, that fights should lead maybe to other kind of compositions, other kind of architectures, other kind of urbanisms on this level. So we propose for the coming 3 years, and I'm looking forward to that, to create a fund and a program altogether that makes these studies, that visualize them, and to choreograph these studies in a very strong way. That we use Europan, maybe even in a stronger way, to make that visualization there, and to culminate it into maybe in an exhibition where we bring everything together. And in the meantime, we need to communicate. So this proposal goes hand in hand with, say, a kind of tour de l'Europe of a pavilion that wants to shake hands with every mayor, that wants to know what he or she is willing and wanting to do, and to make that in a kind of monitor that is needed in order to turn Europe into a city, to turn Europe into a device where we can talk and where we can compare and where we can suggest on that way.
I give you appointment in 2 years with all the visions that Winnie has mentioned, that we will elaborate all together. And that's very important that it is a collective effort, because claiming is something. Of course now, in a way, we have to take the floor, because the floor is not given. It's not given. And I really appreciated that Mr. Barata offered us together to be there today, to give us the floor for once, for the first time in the history of the Biennale, to represent beyond the national participation, a collective, already a common ground, let's say. So that was very important, first step. But next, now we have to go ahead. So together, okay, we can already, I encourage you to see these manifestos that we will bring to Mr. Barroso, Mr. Schulz, and all the government in Europe. Second, that also, that with this step we make, that not only we have to claim that we exist, because what I can witness in participating in all the groups that Bart Lotsmas mentioned at the opening is that in spite of all the studies, the marvelous exhibition like we have here in architecture, city, urbanism, it is not going to the ears, to the eyes, and to the mind, let's say, in this way, in this visionary way, to the politicians and to the policy makers. And in a way, we are here to be the go-between and to bring it on the table, on the public discourse, and also to bring new ideas, as Winnie said. And we are very, very happy that Winnie, with his talent, is partner for this operation and manifesto.
Could I give, are there any questions, remarks, complaints, cursors from the audience? Maybe?
No, I think that Yvette Masson-Zanussi said everything EFAP wanted to state at this event, and I would like to follow up on what Dr. Barata said in the opening remarks, and also what was touched by Winnie later, that we are structurally underestimating the capacities of the discipline of architecture. The intellectual potential of architecture is drawn into the crisis. The construction industry is in crisis. Architecture should not be in crisis. Architecture is so much more than constructing buildings. Architecture is the capacity to combine different stakes, society, economy, ecology, to bind them together, to create a future vision on the basis of that. By, for instance, a traveling, may I say, a sort of traveling circus like Winnie proposed, to mobilize all these new ideas, all these young, fresh visions on how to design our society that are now being put aside or not heard or seen simply because architects are not hired to do so. Use the capacity of architecture would be my message to all the authorities concerned. Use the capacity of architecture for other things but merely building. Use the capacity of architecture to create a synthesis, to create a new vision on society, and then industry, construction, etc. will follow. Maybe an easy idea, maybe even a little bit naive, but I think we need a new start in that direction.
Thank you very much.
I just would like also to apologize the Minister of Culture of France that should attend this meeting, but apparently she is occupied at the moment, but also she wanted really to have to give a saluto and say also support to this initiative.
We have to regard.
Hello, everybody. I'm a little bit sorry, but I heard this remark every year since 30 years now, that architects are underestimated and nobody listens to architects and they are so important and we are I'm German, the Opfer of everything. So I don't want to listen to that anymore. And I would have a little suggestion to the manifesto. So I'm interested how collaboration and collective working with architects could happen in future. I'm coming from Germany and talking about this city, it's always the architect is an artist, he's working alone, he has bright ideas for his own idea for representation of cities and buildings, and it's very artistic. So how can we integrate into the EU manifesto the idea of multiple Autorenschaft, of really working together and have a collective idea of being architects working together? And this corresponds very good to Mr. Barata's introduction, that he's made a plea for institutions and legislations and everything. So I would highly recommend something like that.
Thank you very much. Well, I think it's already obvious. I mean, in Europe there are as many architects in Germany as there are in the United States. So the role of architects is important, and I think in many ways this initiative and the collaboration with the different forces and politicians is a plea for this collaboration. On the other hand, I think it's also important for the other parties to understand what kind of part architects could play in that if they're organized. So who wants to, yeah?
Because this is a discussion. You are not agreeing with some viewpoints. May I say to you that the European Union, the community as it is, started from a purely economic point of view. They were interested, as far as microeconomics were concerned, in industrial sectors. What we see nowadays is an extension of this field to the creative side of society, which is a very great leap forward. And among these creative industries, the role of architects and urban planners is very important indeed. The second point is that the Union has never been very interested in cities as lively communities. At national level, yes, but we want, and that is what the EU manifesto is expressing, that the EU as such is also giving full-fledged attention to the new city of the future. So it is not a complaint when I say that architects and urban planners are underestimated not in Europe as in the countries, but in European policies. It is a matter of fact, and we should create a fertile ground for bringing in them into the new shaping of our communities and society. So in that sense, it is maybe a complaint, but not a complaint. It is an incentive for the European Union to go ahead in that direction.
I think these are important steps. Of course, it is. There's not much. To be honest, I don't think there's much complaining here. There is an incredible amount of opportunities. There's just one thing. I think there has been a tendency since over the last decade or so that architects limit themselves to doing competitions and doing buildings. And I think it is clear from many parties here on the stage that there is actually a desire for architects to do more again, to develop visions, to do research, and that there basically is also funding for that. That is a great opportunity, and I think that is a fantastic chance for architects to engage in a larger role as they had, let's say, in the 1920s, 30s, 50s, and to regain that role again. And it is fantastic that it has the support of all these parties in Europe. So for now, I want to thank you very much for attending this conference. I want to thank the panelists, thank the team of the City Manifesto, thank the AFAP, thank the Y Factory, and I wish you a wonderful Biennale.